After episode 6 aired, the one where I shared the truth about my marriage, something happened that I completely wasn't expecting. My inboxes exploded. Literally hundreds of DMs, emails at 2 a.m., text messages, voice messages from women crying in their cars. And do you know what almost every single one of them said? They literally were like, "It's like you were describing my life. How did you know?" So today, I'm answering your questions. The ones that you're afraid to ask out loud, the ones that you whisper to yourself at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. Because staying in a relationship that's slowly killing you, that is not brave. That's just dying in slow motion while everyone thinks that you're living. Welcome to When Staying is the Wrong Kind of Brave. Hey there, beautiful humans. Welcome back to Mess to Millions. I'm your host, Erica Carrico, and I'm sitting here today feeling all of the feelings. I knew episode 6 was going to hit different, and I knew sharing the real story of my marriage, the dying inside while looking fine on the outside, the separate bedrooms, the drinking just to tolerate my own life. I knew it would resonate, but I didn't know how much. The response was overwhelming and also heartbreaking because so many of you are living this right now. So today's episode is a little different. This is me sitting with you, answering the questions that you've been too afraid to ask anyone else. And these are questions that I had as well when I was in my marriage, trying to decide whether to stay or whether to go. We're going to dive deep into how do you know if it's really over? And what if I'm just being too sensitive? And what about the kids? How did you actually find the courage to go? By the end of this episode, I want you to have clarity, not on what I think you should do, but on what you already know in your soul is true. Because you already know. You already know. So let's go. Okay, so I'm going to read some of the actual messages I received with permission, and then I'm going to answer them from my heart and from my experience and from the woman on the other side who wishes someone had told her these things years earlier. Question number 1, how do you know if you're just in a rough patch or if it's actually over? Oh man, this question hit me right in the chest because I asked myself this for years. I want to say I asked myself this since my first year of marriage. And here's what I learned. So a rough patch is when you're both fighting for the relationship. You're both showing up. You're both trying. Even when it's hard, you're both committed to communicating. You're both committed to transparency, right? So maybe you're in different places right now, but you're still on the same team. You both love each other. Okay, that's a rough patch. But when it's over, when it's really over, you stop caring. The moment I knew it was over was when I stopped caring. And not because you're a bad person, but because your nervous system has checked out to protect you. For me, I knew because I stopped feeling anything. I literally stopped feeling disappointment. I stopped feeling angry. I stopped feeling hopeful because hope requires believing something can change. And I knew after a few years, I knew deep in my bones that nothing was going to change. And I knew that I was in trouble. And here's a question that helped me. So if nothing changes for the next 20 years, can you accept this life? Not survive it, accept it. Be at peace with it. Because people can change, but only if they want to. And wanting to change because they're about to lose you, that's not real change. That's panic. That's actually manipulation. Real change happens when someone wants to grow for themselves, right? Not just to keep you. Question 2. This is a big one. A lot of you asked about the kids. What about the kids? Won't they be traumatized by divorce? Oh my goodness. And this is the question that kept me stuck for an extra 4 years, I would say. My son, he once said to me, completely matter of fact, that he was shocked that married people sleep in the same bed. I think he was probably 8 or 9. And we had been in separate rooms for so long that my child thought that this was what love looked like. This was normal to him. Sleeping in separate beds was normal to him. This is what he would grow up expecting from a relationship. And that moment, I was driving and I just remember it broke me open. Here's the truth nobody tells you. So kids don't need their parents to stay together. They need their parents to be a whole person. They need to see what healthy love looks like, even if that means two happy homes instead of one miserable one. You know what really traumatizes kids? Growing up in a home where they can feel the tension, the resentment, the silent wars happening over their heads. Learning that love means shrinking yourself. Learning that marriage means dying inside while smiling on the outside. My kids now have a mother who is alive, who laughs, who sings, who dances in the kitchen, who is building an empire, who shows them that when something isn't working, you have permission to choose yourself. You know, my kids see me half the time now because 50-50 custody is standard in Colorado. But here's the thing. They see all of me, the real me, not the shell of a human I was becoming. And that was when I finally made the decision to go, was like, I was a shell of myself. And I remember thinking, I would rather have my kids see the full me and be in full expression of myself, living who I truly am, than to see me every day shut down and not even know who their mother was, right? Like, I really do believe that that as kids, we choose who our parents are. As souls, we choose the families that we're going to come into based on the lessons that we need to learn and the soul little evolution that our soul needs to have. And I felt like my kids chose me, and I wasn't doing them a favor by shutting myself down, by keeping myself small, by being quiet and silent and broken. They chose me, and I needed to give them the experience of me, right? And even if that meant they only got to see me half the time, they needed to know me. They needed to learn the lessons that I can teach them, that I can show them in my full self-expression, right? So now they see all of me. And I cannot tell you how powerful that has been, okay? Question number 3. I've tried everything. Couples therapy, date nights, talking, nothing works. Am I the problem? Oh my gosh, this one makes my heart ache because I know how many of you have tried so hard. Oh, I know this because of the conversations that I have with you all, the messages that I receive. I know because I tried so hard. Let me tell you about my relationship coach. I'm putting this in air quotations, experience. This man, I will not say his name, a male coach, when my husband and I were trying to decide, we were trying to work on a relationship, I had told him that I wanted a divorce, and he said, well, you've invested in other areas of your life. Why not invest in our relationship as well? And he had a fair point. I had been in therapy myself trying to decide whether I wanted to stay or go. I had asked him to come to therapy. He had always said no. But when I finally said I wanted a divorce, he was like, okay, let's go. So we went to a couple different therapists. I think I talked about this in previous episodes. He didn't resonate with any of them. And I thought, okay, well, maybe he'll like a coach better and maybe he'll like a man. Let's try that, right? So we went to this man, and he was a local person here in the Boulder, Colorado area. And this male coach, I don't remember what session it was. This male coach didn't ask for any kind of background information. He didn't ask, we didn't even dive into the problems that we were having in the marriage. We didn't even dive into why I was so shut down. It was just said that I was this emotionally cold, shut down person. And this man told me that I was the problem and that I needed to be a surrendered wife. He literally had me read this book called The Surrendered Wife. And he also said, this is exactly what he said. He said, Erica, you are like Schwarzenegger with tits and you need to take your dick off. He said that to me. I still feel angry about that. A woman who had shut down emotionally because her partner refused to meet her for years was being told she was the problem, that she wasn't feminine enough. Here's what I want you to hear. When you try to fix something with someone who isn't trying to fix it with you, you're not in a partnership. You're in a one-woman rescue mission, and you cannot save someone who doesn't want to be saved. If you've done the work, if you've shown up, if you've asked and begged and pleaded for change and they still won't meet you, no, you're not the problem. The problem is that it takes two and you can't clap with one hand. Whew, I get fired up. I get fired up about all this. I would love to hear your comments. I would love to hear your questions. I will create another episode and go even deeper into a lot of this. So please write me, reply, send me emails, erica@ericacarrico.com. I want to know what else you want to hear about. Question 4. This is a big one. So many of you said that. Okay. He says I'm blindsiding him, that he had no idea I was unhappy. How is that possible? I think honestly, my own husband said I had blindsided him, and every friend that I've spoken to that has told their husband they want a divorce, their husband said the same thing. I feel blindsided. And when I was dating, anytime a man told me he felt blindsided that his wife just left, it was an immediate, I am out, like run for the door, hugest red flag ever. I've had so many conversations with women since episode 6 dropped, and every single one says the same thing. I was dying for years. I told him I was unhappy for years. And same, I did the same for years, since year 1. And I lasted 10 years. Since year 1, I was telling him I was unhappy and why. And yet, when women finally leave, the men say they're blindsided. Here's the pattern I see. Women express their unhappiness. Men hear it as just complaining or she's being dramatic. Women ask for therapy. Men say no or go once and then they quit. So women eventually stop asking because nothing changes. Men interpret the silence as, oh, things must be fine now. I'm not hearing anything from her. And then when she finally hits her limit after years of trying, suddenly he had no idea. No, he had every idea. He just chose not to believe you until you actually left because your words weren't matching your actions. You kept saying you were unhappy, but you kept staying. So he assumed you'd keep staying forever. You taught him over time, and I did this. I taught my husband that my words didn't matter. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because you loved him and you believed him when he said he'd change. You gave him grace and he mistook it for weakness. What changed for me? So let's talk about what actually shifted, because knowing you need to leave and actually leaving are two very different things. For me, the shift happened, I'd say, in layers, right? Like layer 1 was the cancer wake-up call. When I was diagnosed with cancer at 36, I thought, if I'm going to die, I want to see my kids every day. So I stayed. I had been married for, I believe, 7 years at that point, and before I got diagnosed, I was pretty ready to ask for a divorce. And then I got diagnosed and it was like, well, if I'm going to die, I don't want to be a part-time mom. I want to see my kids every day. So I stayed. But here's what I didn't expect. The staying itself started to feel like part of my dying. I had survived cancer. My body had fought so hard to live, and yet I was killing myself slowly in a marriage that was suffocating me. The irony was almost too much. Cancer taught me that I wanted to live, not just exist and not just survive, but actually live. Again, I had lived before with passion, with purpose, with joy, but it was gone. I knew I couldn't do that in that marriage. I couldn't even be myself. And this is where my purpose work came in. So this is layer 2, the vision of what could be. So my purpose work came in, and honestly, this is what saved me. Even in the darkest moments, I held a vision. I could see myself in a peaceful home, a home that was fully mine, where everything in it brought me joy. A home where I could be myself without criticism. I could be in my home without walking on eggshells, without shrinking, without worrying about what kind of a mood someone was going to walk in on. I could see myself thriving. I could see myself building something meaningful, making an impact, being alive. And that vision became my anchor. So when fear tried to keep me stuck, I come back to that vision. When guilt tried to convince me I was selfish, I'd come back to that vision. When everyone else's opinions tried to drown out my inner knowing, I'd come back to that vision. That is exactly what I teach in my book, Awaken Your Purpose. How to get clear on what you truly want. How to hold a vision even when your current reality looks nothing like it. And how to trust that the life you're dreaming of is already on its way to you. Your purpose in these kinds of situations becomes your compass. In illness, in divorce, in the hard times, your purpose is your compass. And when everything else is falling apart, it's what you rebuild your life on. The third layer is I became willing to lose everything. And this part is hard. When I left, I lost everything. I felt like I had thrown a grenade in my life and blew the whole thing up. And I was just standing there looking up, waiting for the pieces to fall. His family blocked me. Our friends chose sides. His brother posted degrading names and misogynistic slurs on my social media. Clients would message me panicking. I'd have to delete his comments and he'd post again. I went from seeing my kids every day to 50-50 custody. I had to move out of the family home. I lost my family structure. I lost the life that I had spent a decade building. But here's what I gained: myself. I found the woman I'd lost in my late 20s. I started singing again. I started dancing. I started laughing. I stopped drinking alcohol because I no longer needed it to tolerate my own life. I explored who I actually was and what I actually wanted, what I wanted, what Erica wanted, including falling in love with a woman and discovering parts of myself that I'd never allowed to exist before. They say that this is another thing that someone told me when I was going through my divorce: what liberates one soul liberates all souls involved. I built a home that is fully mine and my kids. Everything in here is here because I love it. I decorated it exactly how I wanted it. Nothing is in my space that doesn't bring me joy. I choose who comes in and who doesn't. It's a safe, peaceful, loving haven for me and my kids. And oh yeah, I built a multi-million-dollar business while becoming the most authentic version of myself I've ever been. You have to be willing to lose everything to gain yourself. And I know that sounds terrifying. I know, because I get goosebumps even thinking about how scared I was. But here's the secret: you're not actually losing anything real. You're shedding the life that was never meant for you so you can step into the one that is. Okay, so I want to get practical here because I know some of you are sitting with this episode and you're still not sure what to do. I'm not going to tell you to leave. That's not my place at all. Only you know what's true for you. I'm not going to tell you to stay either. But here are some questions that I worked through that might help you also get clear. Question 1, what are you modeling for your children? If you have kids, look at what they're learning about love, about marriage, about what's acceptable in a relationship. One thing that I ask myself is, would I want my daughter to be in this kind of a relationship? Would I want my son to treat his partner the way I'm being treated? And those two questions alone made me burst into tears. I mean, I was horrified and devastated and so sad because the answer was no, absolutely not. Kids don't learn from what we say. They learn from what we tolerate. Question 2, who have you become? Do you recognize yourself? Can you remember who you were before this relationship? Are you singing? Are you dancing? Are you laughing? Are you creating? Or have you slowly shut down piece by piece to survive? And here's a big one for me. If you've stopped caring, not about the relationship necessarily, but about yourself, that's your soul telling you something. Question number 3, are you staying out of love or out of fear? Be honest here, really honest. And I know some of you are sitting in your cars crying because this is what I did and this is what you're messaging me telling me you're doing. If you have a fear of being alone, you have a fear of your finances, you have a fear of judgment, you have a fear of custody battles, you have a fear of not seeing your kids every day, you have a fear of what people will think, fear of starting over. I had every single one of these. These are all valid fears. But fear is not a reason to stay. Fear is just information. And you can walk through fear. I promise you. On the other side of fear is freedom. Question number 4. If nothing changes, can you accept this for the rest of your life? Not survive it, accept it. Be at peace with it. Because waiting for someone to change is gambling with your one precious life, and you deserve way better odds than that. Question 5. This was a big one. What would you tell your best friend? If your best friend came to you and described everything you're going through, the criticism, the disconnection, the loneliness, the shutting down, what would you tell her? I remember telling many people that I felt more alone in my marriage than I ever had when I was single. And if that wasn't a huge sign, I don't know what is. Would you tell her to stay and try harder? Or would you tell her she deserves more? Now, I want you to say that to yourself because you are your own best friend, or at least you should be. Question 6. Do you still believe things can change? Not hope. I don't want you to go into hope addiction, but believe. Do you believe things can change? Because hope without action is just magical thinking. Belief comes from evidence. Has your partner shown you consistently that they're willing to do the work? For me, it was a big fat no. If the answer is no, if you've lost the belief, then I think you already know. If you've made it this far into this episode, I want to leave you with something. There's a certain kind of bravery that we've been taught as women. The bravery of staying, the bravery of holding it all together, of sacrificing ourselves on the altar of everyone else's comfort. We're told we're brave when we endure, when we don't complain, when we keep the family together at any cost, even when that cost is our own soul. But that's not bravery. That's survival, and there's a difference. Real bravery, that's choosing yourself when everyone expects you to keep choosing them. That's walking into the unknown because you trust what's on the other side is better than the slow death you're living now. That's saying this isn't working and meaning it. Again, I'm not telling you to leave your marriage. Only you know if that's right for you. But I am telling you to be honest with yourself, really honest, because you already know the answer deep down underneath all the fear and guilt and what ifs. You already know. And whatever you decide, I want you to know you are worthy of love that feels like home. You are worthy of a partner who chooses you every single day. You are worthy of a life where you feel alive. You are not too much. You are not asking for too much. You are not selfish for wanting more. You are a woman who deserves to be fully seen, fully loved, and fully alive. And I believe in you, whatever you choose. And I'm here. Please feel free to reach out to me. Send me a DM, text me if you've got my phone number, write me an email. I'm genuinely here for you all. And I'd love to know what you want me to speak about more. You know, if this episode landed for you, take one of those questions that I shared and sit with it. Like really genuinely sit with it and journal on it. Let yourself feel whatever comes up. And if you're ready to go deeper into your purpose work, if you're ready to get clear on who you really are and what you're really meant for, that could be a very first step for a lot of you. Just grab my book, Awaken Your Purpose by Erica Carrico. It's on Amazon. I'll link it to the show notes here. It's on Audible, Kindle, iBooks, Apple Books, And it's got the exact 28-day framework that helped me to rebuild my entire life. starting before I left my marriage. I will tell you that. You can just go to ericacarrico.com/books. And again, I also want to hear from you. Please DM me on Instagram at @EricaLynnCarrico and tell me what resonated. Tell me your story. Ask me the questions you're still afraid to ask. Your questions, they become future episodes. This is a conversation, and I'm here for all of it. And if this episode helped you, please share it with a woman who needs to hear it. Send it to the friend who's struggling, to the sister who's shrinking, to the mama who's dying inside while everyone else thinks she's fine. And subscribe now so you don't miss the next episodes. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for trusting me with your heart. Thank you for being brave enough to ask the hard questions. I love you. I believe in you. And I'll see you next week. Your mess is your message. Now let's turn it into millions together.